Aha. Ooh. we have managed to come back. Yes, but now there's nobody here. Oh dear, oh dear. Oh, that is what happens, people, when you have unreliable internet connections. Isn't that a shame? Because we were running fairly well, but now we lost it. Yes, this is so disappointing. And I was doing so well. I was doing so well. Let's see. Let's see if anybody can find us again and reconnect. There we go. So, we are now live, but do we have anybody here? Yay! Yay! So yes, sorry about that. I don't. It. What more can one do? What more can one do? This is where the mountains disappoint us. That I've got the mobile internet connection, I've got the house internet connection, and all of it works perfectly up until the point that you need it, and then it goes kerploots. So hopefully, if people kind of circle back, hopefully they're gonna see that we're here. Okay. Do you think it all went wrong when I tried to share the screen? Yeah. So perhaps I can do it old school this time and try not to share the screen. Yeah. So this is let's see if we can find anybody else who might be online. So let's see if we can refresh this, because I've got a different screen right here that I'm trying to try and refresh to see if things are on. Thank you, Hannah, for sticking with us. Yes. So these are the challenges. Now, back in the day, I would have said, let's get a Starlink to solve these problems. But these days, we're a bit worried about these types of products. So perhaps not. Okay, so let's see where we're at. So I will continue regardless. So what's going to happen is I'm going to fix this for... Yes, you know what? The more stuff I see, the more depressed I get. So I'm trying to get a healthy distance between what's happening in the news and what I'm doing on a daily basis, because it is beginning to affect the way that I can function for stuff. So I think I need to take a little bit of a step down from the online unpleasantness and what we find around us in the news, till we get to the point that we actually have to engage with it, because that's what we need for our work, or this is what we put in our assignments. But yes, the whole situation is getting a bit difficult. So now, as people are trying to kind of join back in the stream, I will plow through. So Hannah is with us here, so please let me know if everything still works, or if it disconnects again. Hopefully it can keep on going. So I'm not gonna try and share the screen this time, because this is what brought it all down last time I did it. So why are we here today? Today we're here for a student hangout that we've been trying to do, but we're getting kicked out by the internet. And I wanted to have a general discussion with a variety of people that participate in my programs, our channel members, various students that I've got in various contexts, to help us to think and reflect a little bit about study and what we're trying to do. So one item that I wanted to discuss, and one of the key things that we've got, is the idea of thinking of the reason why we're engaging into study. So very often you will find some information that says, if we set some clear goals and priorities for what we're trying to do, this is helping us bringing together some building blocks that we need in order to succeed in study. For example, let's think about the objectives that we've got for being in a module, right? So if you are enrolled in a module at the university, either independently as a one-off, which can happen either at the OU or the University of London, or perhaps you are in a degree program, which again is students that have got on the degree structures are in these programs. Now, why is it that you wanted to do this? If you're taking an independent module, is it that you have a particular interest in the subject? Is it that there's a particular work-related application for that? So is it that your employer, for instance, is funding you to be in that module because they want you to get specific knowledge out of it? Is that what's going on? So there are a variety of reasons why people might be enrolling into something specific. So I think it's worth investigating or being mindful or being sort of clear about what the reasons why you've enrolled into a program of study. So that can help you sort of clear out your objectives and your understandings of it. And if you are part of a bigger program, so you're engaging in the study because you want to progress in a particular degree pathway to get a certificate or to get a degree, then you can think about how this can be used thereafter. If you prioritize your objectives, and if you are clear about your objectives, it will help you to prioritize what you do afterwards. We've got Devin that joined us again. Thank you for chasing me around these live streams as I'm trying to kind of set them up and they're gonna drop down on me. I think I've launched the poor live stream 2 or 3 times already. So, thank you for being here. So, first of all, as we said, within the context of that you're doing it, is it a single module? Is it a particular course you're taking? Is it the entire master's that you're trying to do? Think about the reasons why you're doing it and what you seek to achieve by doing it. I think that can help offer some clarity. Now, in addition to this, once you're within a particular pathway, then you get to think about the topics that you're doing and how you position yourself against those topics. Now, Anna is saying there in the chat that she's thinking about the balance between an undergraduate law degree and a master's in law, and how that could help. It can help with issues of progressing in work. It can help with attaining qualifications that then they can get you qualified to practice as a lawyer in particular jurisdictions. What I'm thinking is, if you're clear as to the reasons why you're doing it, and then you have a look at the structure of the program that you're undertaking, then it can help you to prioritize topics and allocate your energy and your time in the areas that require most attention. Now, it's quite possible that some stuff you know already, especially if you're undertaking a program at master's level, it will build upon things that you've done in your undergraduate. Some things might be exactly the same as you've done before, or some things might be very similar or mostly based on what you've done before. Therefore, you might need to spend less time on things that you've covered or you got some familiarity with. Then, once you've got this sorted out, then you can devote your attention and your time to things that go a little bit beyond this that you might find more challenging. If you want an example, we've got a variety of people. Unfortunately, we had some of my students in the previous chat, but we lost them now. We've got some people at the Open University undertaking a law program, but they're coming from a variety of jurisdictions. Some people are coming from development studies, some are coming from the MBA, some are coming from business studies, some are coming from law. So these students will have different familiarity with different aspects of the program. The business students will be very good in coursework that has to do with reports, on things that have to do with kind of business performance or business planning. They might be less familiar with law, less familiar with the citations that one needs in law, and they might need some more time to get on top of those ones. This is perfectly normal. So once you worked out what you're already competent on and where you got the information on, and then what you need to build upon, then you can devote more of the time to that. And I want to be clear with this here, guys. We are not operating in a bubble. The people that are teaching you are very much aware of the constraints around your study. We know that many of you do not have as much time as you want to devote to your study. This happens very often for the students at the University of London and at the Open University and other distance programs where they're studying on a part-time basis in a parallel way to other things that they do. Yeah, we know this. So we don't build our programs with an expectation of full-time engagement. And to be honest with you, even for the students either at undergraduate or postgraduate level that are engaged in a full-time course structure, they still don't have the full time to devote to it, because the vast majority of people have got family or caring obligations on the side. They've got part-time jobs that they're pursuing. Some of them have got full-time jobs as well. So there isn't really anymore the sort of profile of student that they come straight out of uni and they go straight out of school and they go straight into uni and they've got nothing else to do other than devote themselves to their studies. And the teachers know this, the university knows this, the institutions know this, everybody knows this. Perhaps the only people who don't seem to know this are the SRA, who are in charge of the solicitors qualifying examination, that they dump all this obligation to revise and learn everything to prepare for this single exam to people who are, by definition, trying to run a life and a family and a job at the same time. So perhaps, the solicitor's exam is a little bit more demanding and a little bit more distinct. For the rest of the programs, everybody is aware of the need to balance different things in different ways. And that's why if sometimes you're thinking that you're not devoting yourselves fully, or you could have done better if you had more time and more resources, this is not simply you realizing this. We know this very, very well. We do know that people could perform better if they had more time and more energy to devote to their study. And this feeds into the way that we understand your requirements, we understand your study, we understand what we can do to support you. Now, did you guys know this? Are you getting this vibe actually from your teachers, that your teachers are aware of the external constraints that you might have that are affecting your study? Or do you get the feeling that the teachers are sort of asking for one thing in a particular way and they seem to ignore whatever else is happening in your lives? Now, if you're happy to share how you feel about this, it would be helpful for me and the others here to know. Hopefully, in the various contexts in which we've met each other, in the various contexts in which you study, you're getting the support that you need from the teachers and the institution going forward. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about how one could go around setting goals for what they're trying to do, and once they've set the goals and they're mindful of what they're trying to achieve, then prioritize their time and prioritize their energy. Now, what can you do after that? Now, this has been a big debate, and this is actually something that you could help me out with. There's been a big debate as to whether we should provide you guys with pathways and study planners and calendars and things like this. Now, if you're on a traditional full-time taught program, you will be provided with a syllabus that has got a breakdown of what happens week by week. So in the vast majority of institutions, you will always have a module handbook. And one of the first things that you find in the module handbook is a weekly breakdown of topics. This provides you with a sort of pathway and a sequencing of topics and information as you go through it. In other environments, this sort of pre-prepared calendar is becoming a bit more diffuse. For instance, the University of London is not very keen in providing a calendar. They're offering students, obviously, a study guide, and the study guide has got a table of contents with the things that the syllabus is covering. And then there is, depending on the program that you're on, there might be some opportunity for a live session or a webinar or a get-together. But there isn't a study guide as such that says this week we study this, that week we study that. At the Open University, they have a different approach. They actually give you a study calendar for every module that says, this week we're reading these parts from our guides and our books. We have these seminars and get-togethers coming up. We've got this assessment coming up, and you can enroll this on the module website, and you can see the totality of the calendar, or you can have a more contained view that shows you the immediate weeks, 2 or 3 weeks going forward. Now, do you normally find those study guides or those calendars or those study planners helpful, or do you find that they constrain you, especially if you're studying on a part-time basis? Now, if feel free to put your views in the text that we've got here as we're live, or if you're watching this on the replay, feel free to put your thoughts in the comments, and I'll make sure I read those and respond to them, so that we can get a discussion going on either while we're here today, or if we're watching on the replay later on. Now, I find personally that having a study planner that reminds people what they should be studying and when can be helpful. But there's a trick. Don't see the study planner as an obligation and as a constraint, because very often people are going to get very stressed when they're missing the milestones in the study guide. So don't see it as a set of milestones you meant to achieve. See it more as a sort of best practice idea to help you prioritize your time, or to help you to think about specific topics that you should be covering, this week and then that week. Especially if you've got a program that's got a sequence of assessments, like in the Open University, there's normally loads of assessments that are coming like every 3, 4, 6 weeks or so. It's important that you keep with the study planner, because otherwise, if you're falling too much behind, then you might be pressuring yourself to cram too much information closer to an assessment time. If you're on a different type of program that just has a final exam as an assessment, then you've got greater flexibility in following the guide. But then I think you will need the assistance of an idea of a study planner to help you through it. So time management is very important. Balancing the requirements of the work, whether you've got regular coursework or whether you're preparing for an ultimate exam, I think is very important. Now, one of the things that has been missing, I think, and is really, really problematic for the candidates for the solicitors qualification exam, that I'm primarily trying to help this group through my YouTube channel, because there's nobody else there helping them. One of the problems that these people have is that you do have just the ultimate examination date. So you can choose the examination date, fair enough, okay? You can say, I'm going for the SQE one sitting in July, or I'm going for the next one in January 26, or whatever. So, okay, fine, you choose that. But once you've made your choice, then you've got this immense volume of work. And it is very difficult to think, how do I break down this volume of work so I've got a sense of progress for myself, so I know what I'm doing, but also to make sure that I don't miss out bits of the syllabus that I need to cover, and then I have to cram in the last few weeks and kind of work like crazy. So nobody, unless you're in a prep school, or unless you're part of a program, nobody will really offer you a study planner that helps you through this. So that's why I thought what I can do to support the community here is to provide a set of pre-planned study planners that have got different starting points. For instance, I had made, for the people who were looking towards the January 25 exam and were starting right after the summer holiday, I had made a study planner that was going from September all the way to the exam in January, and I broke down the syllabus in what they should be doing every week. So somebody who really needs this, I'm not saying that everybody needs it, but somebody who does need this level of support and actually needs like a pathway to help them plan their study, could take that study planner. It's free on my website. I'm going to put down a link down in the description to those study planners, by the way, if you want to get them. They're all free. They're PDFs, right? And then I made another one starting from sort of, I think it was November, going all the way to the July sitting of Q1. And now I'm going to make another one that is going to start us again from the summer, looking forward to the January 26 exam. So I am a believer in study planners. I'm not saying that it's an obligatory step for everybody, and I'm not saying that everybody's going to have the same value by using those, but I personally benefited from them when I was a student. So I would like people to think, if you're provided with a calendar that spreads out the learning content and tells you what you need to study and when, that could be given to you by your teacher, it could be given to you by the university, it could be given to you by a prep school or a tutor, or you could pick up the ones that I make myself for the SQE. Think whether it's helpful. Don't see it as a constraint. Don't see it as something to stress you out. but utilize it as something that you could use to sort of structure and pre-plan your study. The one thing you want to avoid is being stuck in a situation where you felt like you're missing out some of the learning content that you need for an assessment, for an exam, and then you have to cram like crazy in the last few weeks. Now, I know, because I talk to you guys in real life, I know that some of you like to operate under a time constraint. So, anybody in here? Go on, admit it. Is it you? Do you work better if you've got the clock ticking? Yes. It does happen on occasion. But I think doing some work under a time constraint with a deadline looming can work for shorter pieces of work. Okay. So if you've got like a 2,000, 3,000 word essay, or you got a small multiple choice test, fine. But if you're working for a major piece of work, produce a dissertation like my master's students, that's like 12,000 words or so, or even more. This isn't something that you can do last moment. If you need to prepare for a massive test like the solicitor's qualification examination, then you cannot cram that stuff up until the very end. So think about this. Yeah. Think about whether you can find yourself a study planner and it can work, and whether it can assist you in your study. Don't approach it from a point of stress. Approach it from, hey, here's another tool that I could use to get stuff done. As I said, I'm going to share the link down in the description to my study planner for the SQE candidates, in case anybody who's watching this video is preparing for the SQE. And I'm working on an app. Yes, because everything needs to have an app these days. So I'm working on an app that you can put your own start and end dates, and it's going to spread the syllabus for the SQE across the time you've got available. And then you can have like a really bespoke study calendar for yourselves. Yeah. Okay. Good. So hopefully we're still connected and everybody's there and you guys can still see me. Otherwise, I'm probably talking to myself here for a long time. Give me like a thumbs up, whether you're watching this live or you're watching this in the replay and it's still working. Give me a thumbs up so I know that this is still working out. Okay, now next, what are we going to talk about next? I would like to mention the idea of how do you approach your learning and some learning strategies, right? What do you think about this? I mean, it's quite possible that the vast majority of people watching this are either law students or somehow engaged in the study of law. So how can you build in some tools and some ideas to help you with the study and understanding of law? A great deal of law comes from the case law, especially if we're talking about domestic English law. A vast amount of the basics, if you're doing an undergraduate law degree, you probably worked this out already. A vast amount of the basics comes from reading case law and analyzing and understanding and utilizing that case law. Now, being able to keep a good track of the cases and to have the ability to connect the case name with some key facts. I mean, the facts are normally not vital, but to help you remember what's going on. So the case name along with some key facts, and crucially, the legal issue that the case deals with and the legal principle that it establishes is essential, especially if you're doing this at the start of your undergraduate law engagement. So if you're enrolled on an undergraduate law degree, like an LLB as we call it, in the first and the second year, you're going to get to discuss a lot of cases. I know that this is sometimes challenging because we're no longer in an environment where we try to memorize and remember a lot of stuff, but it remains essential. So having some sort of system that helps you remember the cases, a line or two about the facts, a line or two about the legal principle that each case establishes, and why the case is important, I think is a good building block and builds resilience towards answering coursework, exam questions, and everything that you've got coming up. Now, this is especially relevant, as I said, for students who are on an undergraduate law degree. For postgraduate, we rely less on recollection because it's also less likely that you're going to have to sit an exam where you need to remember stuff. For international law related study, case law becomes less significant. For the SQE, again, case law is less significant because for the SQE, we're dealing on the core legal concepts and how a solicitor might approach the practice of the law, as opposed to remembering a great deal of referencing backs up the legal concepts. So that's one of these things. Be prepared for the unpleasant the unpleasant experience of having to remember a great deal of cases, case names, and all this kind of Victorian stuff, right? I mean, this is the nature of English law. Those of you from continental jurisdictions or other jurisdictions where they're mostly codified, you probably go around carrying the civil code, which contains the key principles. But in English law, we still rely on all these Victorian cases that establish all the fundamentals. Now, second point about this, about sort of learning strategies and how you can take an active approach to your learning, is the idea of participating in communities that are engaging in something similar. Now, this is normally not a problem for those students who are enrolled in a study program. Because if you're undertaking either part-time or full-time study, but you're part of a group with a tutor, then you got some people that you can talk to about all this. So take advantage of this. Not everybody does. So in the classes that I've got physically on campus, we've got tutorials and seminars where people get together every week. But even there, that we're physically present in the same space, people don't necessarily talk to each other. And I think this is a missed opportunity. You need the connections with other people who are going through the same experience and are trying to navigate the same content. This is super important to build a peer support network. And if you're already physically present in a space, it's very easy to get to know people, to establish those connections. Even for distance learning, where you do have a sense of groupings, at the Open University, for instance, every tutor has their own tutor group and the students get to communicate with each other. There are forums, there are other opportunities for the students to get together as a community. Many of the students have established WhatsApp groups and all of that stuff. Again, this one might be remote, meaning that you guys are not in the same space physically together, but you're on the same digital space together. So take the opportunities that this gives to connect with each other and make sure that to the extent that it's appropriate, that you have the contact details of the other students and you can actually get to talk to them about the experience you're sharing. Where it becomes very problematic is when you are in a non-supported program where you've got neither a tutor group, nor contact with an assigned tutor, nor contact with the other students. This is what happens at the University of London, for example, where the students enroll in a program, they get the material, and then they get to sit an exam at the end, and they've got neither an assigned tutor, nor do they know who else is studying on that program. There are a few discussion groups, but these are hardly utilized. Now, for these people, I think we have the greatest danger. So if you're a non-supported program and those self-studying for the SQE or just relying on a set of materials that they purchase from somewhere are in this category, it is very important that you manage to find a way to connect with other people. And for students on non-supported programs, no tutor support, no student community, no engagement, this is the people that I'm primarily worried about. And this is one of the reasons why I set up I set up my YouTube channel as a resource for students who self-study, especially for the SQE. Take advantage of every opportunity to connect. I am trying to create structures around which people can come together, not so that I have access to them, because they've got access to me already. They can email me, they can write messages on social media, but for people to connect with each other. So We have the community forum in this in YouTube that now people are getting. I don't know whether this is on my channel already, but people are getting the opportunity to post messages. People can certainly respond to messages and that way get to meet each other. I've got a Facebook group that is specific for the SQE candidates, that through that Facebook group, people can talk to each other. I've got another Facebook group that is for the channel members like Devin there, that the people who are part of my YouTube effort, they have a closer opportunity to connect with each other. Take advantage of the Iglinavo Scholars, as I call it, Facebook group, because this is really a tight group. Take advantage of that on Facebook so we can talk to each other. Now, in addition, there are other groups. I mean, I'm not running everything. There are other groups. There are groups per university, per school, per category of student on Discord, for instance. Now, I'm not a great fan of WhatsApp groups because I'm a little bit worried about sharing intimate personal information like phone numbers and stuff with people that you don't know. But Facebook, YouTube, Discord have a level of protection because then you don't need to share your real name, you don't need to share your phone number, you don't need to share all that stuff. So if you can find a Discord group, I mean, if you're competent with that technology and you can find a Discord group or a Facebook group, if you're older like me, to communicate with other students, I think this is very important. Now, the worst thing that can happen is that you get the loneliness of it get to you, okay? Because if you're on your own and you've only got the material to work from, and then you don't really know where you're going, and you might find yourself lost, you might find yourself anxious. Participating in a community with other people who are going through a similar experience can always be a great deal of help. Now, Devin is saying in the chat that she was reading about various methods to go through problem questions in law. The one, I made a video about this recently where I'm kind of dressed in a toga and stuff like that. It's a funny video, you should watch it. I talk about the IRAC method, which is identify what the legal issue is, state the rules properly, analyze, and then conclude. Now, the acronym doesn't really matter because the approach to it is fairly consistent. These are all systems of approaching and resolving problem questions in law. So the whole idea is to get you to think about approaching a problem question in a structured way. What is the question about? What is the relevant legal issue that it wants you to discuss, right? What is the rule that supports this? And what's the legal reference? Because every time you say that something is the legal rule, you need to say the rule comes from this statute or the rule comes from this case. So what is the legal citation that is at the back of the rule? State that accurately, mention the citation, and then you know the legal issue that you're trying to resolve. You have stated what the rule is, then offer a link between what the rule is and what the facts are in your problem question. This is your analysis. And then you reach a conclusion. So if you come across various kind of helpful pathways to help you analyze legal problems or legal questions, they're usually things of that nature. So we're talking about how do you approach studies, some kind of learning strategies, and how you can be active about this to achieve the results that you need. So the problem with English law and the need to remember cases and appreciate those cases, I think this issue number one. Secondly is the issue of connecting with other groups of people that you're going through, that you're participating in the same experience. And finally, at least for this part, is the idea of regular and continuous testing. For every level of study, you need to try a lot. You need to try the assignments, you need to try tests, you need to try mock exams, you need to try things that give you the opportunity to validate your understanding of what's happening in an exam relevant scenario. So you should do anything that you can in order to self-test as you're building up your capacity towards some assessment. You can use practice exams, you can use quizzes, you can use multiple choice tests. And you know what? I'm not particular as to where you find them. You could find them anywhere and everywhere. Your books might contain some practice questions. The material that's been shared on the university's virtual learning environment will have some formative assessments. Again, these are practice questions. For candidates for the SQE, you will get a great deal of mock tests, mock exams, samples of choice questions, all of these things. Try all of them. Try as many simulated exams, as many mock tests, as many timed practice questions as you can find. The more you do, the more you build up your resilience towards this exam. So negotiation for things that are less substantive content specific, right? That you need interaction in order to get to them, then it might be a little bit more difficult to find ways to self-assess. So if you're working on something like negotiation or advocacy or oral skills, this can be a little bit trickier. But yeah, I mean, no matter what you're working on, either email me or put it in the various forums that we can communicate with each other, and I have some suggestions for you, perhaps some things to try. But what I would like to say is, don't miss an opportunity for a self-assessment anywhere you can find it. Yeah, even if they look a little bit boring on occasion and you think you've done a lot of these tests, what you're getting tested on is not simply your substantive knowledge. You're also getting tested on your ability to operate in the particular format of an examination. And I cannot stress this enough. You could be an expert on the substantive content, but if you have never seen what the exam looks like before, you're unlikely to be able to perform to the best of your ability. You want an easy example of this? I bet you know how to drive a car. But would you know how to pass the driving test? We all learned how to drive a car pretty much with our parents or grandparents or with a friend, or driving some sort of tractor in a field, right? So we know how to get in a car, we know how to start it, we know how to change gear, we know how to brake, we know how to turn. But do we know how to do parallel parking? Do we know how to do a three-point turn? Do we know how to position ourselves on a motorway that has got multiple lanes? Do we know how to read the signs and respond to the signs automatically? So all of these are skills that you need to have. They're skills that are getting tested, but they're also skills that make sense in the context of an exam. So this is why even people who know how to drive, they pay for driving lessons, because the driving lesson is not so much about you learning to drive, it's more about you understanding how to respond to the requirements of the exam. So try and remember this. Even if you feel totally competent on the substantive content of what you're studying, you also need to be super familiar with the exam environment, and the exam restrictions. Another example is the Solistus qualification exam in the first part, SQ1, that is a multiple choice test, okay? So you're supposed to have attained so much substantive knowledge, but then you have to demonstrate that knowledge through a multiple choice test where you get like really chunky questions and really chunky potential answers that you're meant to go through in a minute and a half and make a decision and click the right one. So the exam environment is partly about the substantive knowledge, partly about technique. You're never going to be on top of the technique unless you practice. So use everything you can find, quizzes, examples from everywhere. The more you try, the more you test, the better it gets, right? So hopefully this resonates with you guys, and I'm not telling you things you already know, but you know what? Even if I'm telling you things you already know, I think it's useful to listen to them again. I think we've got some more people that are connecting live right now, which is good. They managed to find us. So you're sort of refugees from the failed live stream. You see, this is what one learns, that no matter how much you try, sometimes things go wrong. But hopefully this is a fun show for you guys. And next week I'm gonna be back in my own house, hopefully with a more reliable internet connection. But we're not done yet. We've got more things to do. Now, tools, right? What can we use in order to help us? To help us in our prep, to help us in our study, to help us in our understanding of what's going on. Now, as you have probably discovered, if you've been following me around social media for a while, I'm a big fan of AI. Now, I'm perhaps not such a big fan of digital tools, so I'm getting to use this. There are lots of apps, there's lots of software that can help you to organize your notes. It can help you to manage citations. It can help you with collaborative working if you're working with other people to produce a document. Now, to be fair, because I always worked by myself, I'm not that great on the digital tools. And because I'm on an older generation where we used to go to the library, pick things down from the shelves, make handwritten notes, and then go and kind of type our essay in a computer room at some point, I haven't even used citation managers and all of that stuff. But think about this. There's a variety of digital tools that can make your life easier. So consider, is the time spent learning how to use the digital tool worth it or not? So everything requires an upfront investment of time. So even if you put the citation manager and you connect it to your Word software, it's going to take a while for you to figure out how to use it and to verify that it works correctly. If that is an investment of time, but is it going to save you time down the line? So how would you best spend your time? Do you spend your time in an hour trying to learn how to use the citation manager, or do you want to spend an hour per assignment for the rest of your lives making those citations manually and making sure that they're okay if you did them manually? So that's a decision for every person. On this one, I'm a holdout. I still do my citations manually, but perhaps I shouldn't. So all the digital tools, a great deal of them are free. A great deal of them are coming with applications you're using already, like Microsoft 365. A great deal of them are offered to you by the university because the university might have purchased a license and make this available to everybody. So if you've got various digital tools that can help with writing, preparation, study, organization, think about whether you want to use them. Now, the other part of this big debate, and this is something that I'm on top of, is the AI. There is so much stuff that you can do with AI. And I know that there's a great degree of concern, there's a great degree of fear, there's a great degree of anxiety about kind of ethical implications. From the point of view of the students are very worried that if they're using AI tools, they're doing something wrong, and then they're going to be penalized by the university because they violated something, or they're worried about plagiarism and so on. Now, the thing about, there are some key things about AI. So you can use it to summarize information. You can use it to interpret information. You can use it to do innovative things like create mind maps, create notes. You can even use it to create podcasts out of the material. You can use it to narrate the material for you. So a great deal of this can happen through a variety of tools. I can share a couple of them in the chat with you. So I'm using 11 Labs for voiceovers, because they have very good quality AI voices. But also what they do, which is really interesting, they've got an app on the phone, which is free, that you can copy paste anything into the app and then it reads it out for you. So instead of you having like it's like having an Audible subscription where you get the audiobooks, but this one effectively creates the audiobook for you. So let's say that you wrote an essay and then you want to take a step back and review that essay. It could be that you copy paste your essay into the app, and then the app will read it out for you in a really good professional quality voice as you're going for a run or you're going for a walk or something like this. So that way you get to revisit your work, but instead of kind of falling asleep reading your own text again and again off the screen, you can have it in the form of an audiobook read out to you. That can help you take a bit of space for what you're writing, and when you're listening to it, you might be able to assess better, does it Is it okay? Does it make sense? If I put myself in the shoes of my examiner, would that make sense to me? Is that the right way to do it? So I really recommend this. I think it's an incredible tool. Go to the 11 Labs, go to the relevant application store on your phone, download this, and then use that functionality to create something. You can also do podcasts. For example, if you go to Notebook LM, which is Google's tool, you can use this to do absolutely everything. You can upload or link to it any material you've got. You can have text-based material that you can link to. You can have URLs you can link to. You can even give it other podcasts or YouTube videos or anything like this. And you can upload like an enormous amount of resource. You can upload a resource on your topic of choice, and then you can say, do a summary of this, or write a briefing note, or write an interpretation of something, or create frequently asked questions about this topic, and then offer me the answers, or create a mind map, or you can even create a podcast where Notebook LM will distill the information from all of this and then create like a fake podcast between two different actors that they talk about all this. So all this is super useful because it can get you different ways to approach this material. So instead of you doing all this work by yourselves, you can have the AI tool or the AI assistant repackage it in different ways, either to get you some way in preparing notes on this, or to create different versions of it or different interpretations of it that might be easier for you to digest. So some programs and some teachers are given in different formats already. For instance, for my students in my kind of campus-based taught classes where I create the material, I give them slides, I give them lecture notes, I also give them pre-recorded lectures, and I give them like a little briefing paper as a handout for every class. And then I'm giving them reading material from specific books. Do I expect the students to go through all of this? Of course not. Video and then listen to the podcast and then read the lecture notes. They would be duplicating the same work. It's to give people different opportunities to pick the resource that applies to them, that they are most comfortable with, and then go with that. The aim is to get to the learning content that you're after, yeah? But there are different avenues, different pathways in achieving that outcome. And I am not bothered whether the student got the information by reading the lecture notes or reading the textbook or listening to the podcast. I don't care. What I care about is that they get the information. That's why I like to give them different pathways. But not everybody does that, and it's not always available. For example, we don't do this at the Open University because then the material is produced by the team and it's produced in different ways. It's not produced by the individual tutors. So it could be that if you are the audio type, you would like to have a pre-recorded lecture, but you don't find it. But you could take the study guide, you could take the chapter from the book and give it to Notebook LM and then ask it to create a podcast for you. Or you can copy that material and load it onto the 11 Labs app or a similar app, and then it narrates it for you so you can listen to it. Yeah? So either take advantage of the material that's provided to you, created by your teachers, or take the material that is being given to you and turn it into different formats, turn it into different versions that might be easier for you to understand and deal with. So there's a great deal of that happening already. The functionality is there and it's great. The vast majority of it is free, so you don't need to pay for Notebook LM. You can also use Copilot, has got similar functionalities. There's a lot of alternative tools, so it's possible that you're subscribed or you've got access to tools that are not mentioning here that will pretty much go the same way in producing the same type of content. And there's a great deal of discussion lately about AI assistants. The closer that we get to a kind of large-scale AI assistant is Notebook LM. It's something that you can instruct and it can perform a variety of tasks for you that have to do with the learning content that you're trying to address. Now, additional things that you can do. You can actually take ChatGPT and instruct it to do stuff. Okay, you can instruct ChatGPT to create multiple choice questions on the topic that you're studying. So you create yourself a bank of questions you can test against. I've done this very effectively. I've got a couple of videos already on my website telling you how to instruct ChatGPT to create multiple choice questions on the topic of your choice. I'm going to put a link of that down in the description for you guys so you can investigate. My case study is questions for the SQE, but it doesn't have to be questions for the SQE. It can be questions about anything, okay? The idea of prompting it to create multiple choice questions is common. So you could prompt ChatGPT or similar software to create all sorts of things. So you can prompt it to be your AI assistant. You can prompt it to be your teacher. You can prompt it to be a peer that you discuss things with. I've got other videos where I actually get it to mark assignments, where I'm saying, here's how you need to prompt it to give it the information about the assignment, and then give ChatGPT the role of your examiner. So what it's going to come up with is not necessarily perfect, and it's not necessarily going to be the way I would mark your essay, but that doesn't matter. What matters is that you have somebody else who returns some level of feedback on your work, and then you get to think about it. You get to have a sort of reflective attitude towards that feedback and consider, is this helping me? What it's suggesting that I do, does it make sense or not? If it makes sense, I can change something in my essay to make it better. If it doesn't, fine. I've got to think about it again. I got the opportunity to make some changes. If you're self-studying, if you don't have anybody to talk to, if you don't have a tutor you can access, if you don't have friends who are doing the same stuff, you have got nobody to talk to. And you got nobody to support you, nobody to be your peer reviewer and your helpful friend. So the AI bots can do this for you effectively. Yeah. Now, if you utilize this in addition to what I was saying earlier, you part from an online community, you're in a WhatsApp group, you're in a Discord group, you're in a Facebook group, you talk to real students going through the same experience, and you've got the AI assistants on top, then you're building yourself a whole ecosystem of support around your study. And that is the way to succeed, right? That is the best way to get to the outcome that you need by utilizing all these things that you've got available. It would be great if you could just kind of go sit with your tutor every day, right? Or you're living in a house with other friends who are studying the same thing. But I'm afraid that this doesn't really happen anymore. This was the experience that I had when I was a student like 25 years ago. I think the majority of people now are studying either remotely or are in more kind of diverse situations where they don't have the opportunity to have this in a real world constant communication and support either with the teachers or with other students. But what we have instead are all these tools. We can utilize them. And if we can utilize them effectively, I think we can have good results, or we can improve the results that we would have had if we were struggling with this on our own. Now, the final thing that I want to mention, and I'm very pleased that now that I tried not to share the screen, the thing has kept up. So unfortunately, we missed half the students who had joined in to listen to us, but at least the stream has stayed up, so people can watch this on the replay. Now, the final thing that I wanted to mention that I think is important is being mindful of our well-being, being mindful of our psychological situation, be mindful about our motivation. I know that everybody is studying and everybody's trying to succeed, and some people are more engaged in the study because they've got an innate interest in it, but some people are doing it in a more functional way because they need a piece of paper at the end. All of it is fine. But we also need to acknowledge that all these things can get quite stressful and quite demanding, and there's a great degree of burnout from people trying to engage in study, especially for the people who are doing too many things at the same time. If you have to take care of your family and you have to keep up with work and you have to study and sit assessments and things at the same time, this can be very, very difficult. So be mindful of the need to take a break. Be mindful of the need to do something else, like he gets a little bit of physical activity to get up from sitting in front of a screen all day long. And Be mindful of your own capacities and your own boundaries so that you prevent a situation where you're burnt out and then you feel you cannot continue anymore. Some institutions are more accommodating than others. The Open University is fairly flexible with extensions. So if we find that people are struggling with time management, or they're struggling with work, or they're struggling with health problems, then we can give them extensions. Sometimes they can be fairly lengthy to give them additional time to complete their assignments. Other institutions do not offer that capability. So for the University of London, you don't have this because they don't have coursework. They just have a final set exam. The exam is set at particular times. If you're not in a good state to sit the exam, then you just need to skip it. So unfortunately, the system is not built in a way that can accommodate difficulty. And they also have what we call a fit to sit policy, meaning that if you sit the exam, then you're stuck with the results, even if you were unwell on the day. So they cannot make allowances for people being unwell on the day if they actually sat the exam. What can happen is that if you have mitigating circumstances that prevented you from sitting the exam, then you can go to another sitting without suffering penalty. But if you sat the exam, we assume that you were in a position to do it. Now, other universities like campus-based ones, they've got different provision for dealing with mitigating circumstances. And then there's a system of kind of personal tutors and support, which makes things a little bit more flexible. But be aware of your own boundaries. Don't press yourself too much, because if you reach the point of burnout, or of total disengagement because you're so freaked out about it, then it might be more difficult to come back. So be mindful when you're reaching your limits and do something to support yourself before you exceed those limits, and talk to other people. It's important that if you're reaching a point of difficulty, that you share this with other people, and there are other people there to support you, either within your family or peer group, or with the university if you've got a tutor or a personal tutor or a service that can offer you support. And if all of this is lacking, just talk to the people in our communities. You can come to our Facebook group and say, I am having a terrible time. Okay, like I'm fed up with this. I'm finding it too difficult. I'm thinking of quitting. How about you guys? How does everybody else feel about this? And I think if we allowed ourselves to be a little bit more vulnerable in our interactions we've got with people, we will quickly find out that we're not suffering through this alone, that there are loads of other people who are feeling exactly the same. It's just that because nobody starts saying it, people think it's not an appropriate thing to say, and they're all suffering there in silence instead of sharing that, oh my God, like I hate property practice, or, I hate criminal law and I'm finding this so difficult. Nobody's going to judge you. If you share this in a community group, I'm sure there are going to be loads of people who come and say, oh, wow, I feel exactly the same. And then think about some motivational strategies, what you can do to keep yourself on track. Think about setting some goals that are achievable so you feel better when you've done them and you've got a sense of progress. Allow yourself the space to celebrate victories and to celebrate achievements. Okay, just go get yourself an ice cream. If you're thinking, if I get myself to the end of this chapter, or if I finish my coursework today, I'm gonna go out and buy myself a donut, and then go do it. So it's important that you set yourself little achievable targets, and then you celebrate the fact that you've achieved those targets, to get you out of a mentality of pressure, also to give you a sense of success. And again, share these milestones, share these successes in the same way that you can share difficulties with other people. You can share the successes and, breaking through some stuff. And as I said, we were talking about study plans and calendars before. This can help with an idea of setting goals and setting milestones that are achievable. If you're working yourself through a study calendar, then kind of meeting those objectives that says, this week we're studying this topic, that week we're studying that topic. If you're keeping up with the schedule, it will give you a sense of satisfaction that you're progressing towards your goal. So hopefully this kind of resonates with you guys and you find it helpful. I'm not saying that I'm entirely successful these things myself, but I try. right? Because we all struggle with things, and for me in a way, these kind of weekly live streams are my objective. And when I've succeeded in making the live stream, I feel that I've achieved something and I've contributed something to the community, so I celebrate the fact that I've done it. It makes me feel a lot better. So we have spent an hour in this alternate live stream that succeeded the previous one that failed due to the internet connection. So I wanted to say thank you guys so much for joining me today. I know it's been a bit of a bumpy ride. Next week, we're back to our Wednesday at noon London time SQA prep live stream. So I'll see you guys there if you're SQA candidates. Again, thank you so much for turning up. It's the highlight of my week, normally talking to you guys. So have fun for the rest of your week, and I'll see you guys around. Thank you.